Stay in the know with NNB. Get updated.
My enemy's walls are bound to crumble.
Morning, everyone. I am Press Secretary Philomena Robertson. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's post-cabinet press briefing. With me this morning, I have the Minister for Tourism and Civil Aviation, Honorable Clarice Modest Cohen, and also the Minister for Health, Honorable Nicholas Steele. Today, we will be talking about the new entry requirements that have been announced by the Ministry of Health. So those of you on the outside hoping to return to Grenada or to come visit Grenada, the Minister will share with us what the new protocols are for persons arriving in Grenada, quarantine procedures and all such. And also, with respect to civil aviation, we are very well aware that since the onset of the pandemic, commercial flights into Grenada have virtually stopped since March of this year. I think the minister comes bearing some good news this morning in terms of ongoing discussions with the airlines about the resumption of commercial flights to Grenada. We've actually had one such flight come in, and we're hoping for many more in the not too distant future. So without any further ado, I would turn right over. I think we'll go with Minister Steele first. You'll tell us what those new requirements are for those of us coming into Grenada.
Well, thank you, Philomena, and good morning to you and to all our viewers and listeners out there. I want to go over in as much detail as possible, with the time permitting, the new entry protocols. These protocols were revised and became public as of last week and are in effect now. Basically, individuals are treated based on where they're coming from in three separate categories. One is the Carriacou bubble, which is individuals who've been in these countries for at least 14 days. Those countries are Barbados, Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Persons coming from those countries with no travel history from anywhere else in the last 14 days will not require a PCR test on entering, and no quarantine once they pass Immigration and Customs at Morris Bishop International. The other classification would be low-risk countries, or green zone countries as we've referred to previously. Persons coming from green zone countries will require a negative PCR test not more than 7 days old, that is 7 days before the date of travel. On arrival, once this is verified, they will not be required to quarantine. And then the other classification, all other countries. Individuals coming from previously yellow or red zones, as we now classify all other countries, which would include Canada, the United States, the UK, most of Europe. A negative PCR test is required within 7 days of travel. A minimum of 4-day reservation, we recommend 5, but a minimum of 4 days reservation at an approved accommodation where the person would undergo their observation and quarantine. Now, this is not a paper reservation. You actually have to have physically paid reservation, which you will be required to follow through with. Visitors on day 4 will have the option to get a PCR test to be allowed into the community, that is, to exit that Pure Grenada facility. If they choose not to exit that Pure Grenada facility, but would prefer to spend the rest of their time there, then they are not required to have a PCR test. The PCR test takes 1 to 2 days for the results. So individuals who have opted for the 4-day to exit It will take another day or two, which is why we recommend that you have a reservation for at least 5 days for quarantine. On arrival, when you come in, after you've made your reservation and purchased your ticket, on arrival in Grenada, you will be required to present the forms that you have filled out on our website, which is covid19.gov.gd, and also to show proof that you have downloaded the travel app, which is Rona Track, as in coronavirus, Rona Track. It's available on the iOS and Google Play Store. I know we've had some delays on the delivery of the iOS, but I do expect it to be available if not already, within the next day or two. Once you have received your health clearance, if you are coming from the Carriacou bubble or a green zone, you can leave the airport however you choose. That is, you can have friends, family come pick you up, and you can leave the airport however you choose. If you are coming from the Carriacou bubble, verified 14 days or more, or green zone country directly, verified 14 days or more. All others, you must want to leave the airport, you are leaving with approved transportation to go to the approved quarantine site. We are allowing individuals under certain conditions to home quarantine. That is to say that individuals who wish to spend the first 4 days after arrival in their own home can apply for this. This application must be done at least 7 days before travel. That allows the ministry and our personnel to visit the site and verify certain criteria that must be met. And in particular, most important is that the site must be independent of any other house or so. There must be no one else there except the traveler or travelers who are coming in as a family or friends. You must be able to receive supplies without human interaction, physical interaction. So you can have stuff delivered to your doorstep, etc. You must take the GPS locator armband or watch, which is $25 a day or $100 for the entire period of the 4 to 5 days. And you must also download the contact tracing app. Within those 7 days, the ministry will endeavor as best as possible to inspect the site and verify that it is suitable for home quarantine. We do regret that quite possibly not all sites, not all homes would be suitable for home quarantine, but we will do our best as possible, 1, to inspect, and 2, to approve wherever possible, because we do understand the benefits of spending quarantine at home, but we also have to protect the nation at large and make sure that we do not take any undue risks for those, all of us, who are in Grenada, and for those who are looking to come home to a safe Grenada as well. Just to go further with respect to individuals who are not Grenadians but just choose to visit our shores and spend a vacation at one of the Pure Grenada approved facilities, they would do so similar to Grenadians returning. On arrival, you would not, you would be required to spend at minimum the 4 days at those facilities. If you choose to remain at those facilities, you can until you are ready to go back to the airport and leave Grenada. If you do choose to interact with the rest of Grenadian community outside of those pure, safe Grenada facilities, then you will have to take a PCR test and receive negative results, and that can only be done after the 4th day of stay here in Grenada. Individuals who also have been approved for home quarantine will be required to take a PCR test on arrival at Maurice Bishop International Airport, as well as a PCR test on day 4. Reason being, again, to make sure as best as possible, we have removed the risk of that individual being infected. Thank you. And back to you, Philo.
Thank you very much, Minister Steele, for outlining to us the new protocols that are now in effect for entry into Grenada, including the quarantine procedures. Minister Modest Cohen, it has been a very busy period for you, particularly in the last few weeks, I'm sure. And now that we have the new protocols in place, I guess things are intensifying in terms of negotiations, discussions with the airlines. An opening statement from you, Minister, updating us on where things are at present.
Yes, thank you. Well, my opening statement is a statement of very cautious pleasure at the stage at which we are. Pleasure because we've seen the beginning of the possibility of thousands of Grenadians being able to get their jobs back. It is estimated that over 4,000 persons are directly employed, and we have an additional couple thousand maybe when we look at farmers who are benefited and the fisher folk. And as I've said before, if we had any doubt about how tourism really benefits the other sectors, all we had to do was to listen to the complaints during the COVID period, and we know. So, very, very happy. And I use the word cautious because it is a difficult time. We have been very ably guided by the minister and his team. We have worked together to look at the protocols that are necessary following the science. We have tweaked so that we can make it easier for persons to come in, because especially as visitors, because no one would want to come in your country if for 2 weeks or 1 week and spend all of this time cooped up in a bedroom. So we agreed that there has to be a safer way to do it, while being aware that it would not be 100% safe, but the safety would be high enough to make it worth the while getting back into the business. So we have had all of the flights that usually come to Grenada have either resumed or have given us scheduled dates. Of course, we know that, with the exception of Liat, of course. So Air Canada started in August. They had a break for September because of low load factors. And normally, any hotelier will tell you that September is usually a slow month. And a COVID September is even slower. But happy that they have resumed. They came in yesterday. They were full. And we're happy to see that. JetBlue has again was a frequent visitor to our shores. They have started with 1 flight per week on Saturday, and they did come in on Saturday, and we're pleased to have that. Of course, anything that you're going to start either for the first time or restart will, under different conditions, will have its challenges, and we have met our challenges. And we had some with JetBlue, and Minister mentioned, and I think he emphasized the word prepaid booking, because what we found is that a number of persons, they would make some booking and get some confirmation that they have made a booking, but they hadn't paid, and then they arrive home and they say, I want to go to my facility. We only did it because you asked to, and so on. And while we are aware that some persons will have challenges, some persons went away for specified periods and had to stay longer, but we also need our citizens to understand that it's all for the safety of everybody. And the minister did speak about the facilities to be inspected and so on, so I won't go into that, but we are all guided by the need for that. Yesterday was pretty good in terms of the whole process, and I think some of the visitors, they were pleased with what they got to from when they arrived with JetBlue. On Saturday, I saw some videos of their the expressions of appreciation, and we know that those persons would not say that it was good if it wasn't good. I mean, so I am pleased to see where we're going. In terms of the accommodation, there's a criteria. There is a accommodation bubble or hotel bubble, as we say, and Minister alluded to that, what we're going to be observing there and what is going to happen. There are specific protocols for that and criteria. So, for example, there would be, the facility would have to have security. They would have to have controlled exit and access so that people don't just leave and wander where they want if they are not approved to do so. And all of the other protocols that have been established, the social distancing, all of these things must be observed, and there must be scheduling and monitoring activity. So people would be allowed to use the swimming pool, for example, but there must be a certain amount, so people must book before. People will be able to dine, again, with making bookings, and there are some facilities that lend themselves better to that. So we speak of the Sandals, they have the space, they have the number of restaurants. If you can't fit into one, you can fit into another. And there are a number of others, Silver Sands and so, who have similar facilities. So these are going to be grouped in one that in a bubble, so that persons can enjoy certain leeways, certain relaxation, but under strict monitoring. The facilities that do not fit the criteria would be allowed to operate as they did before, when persons were coming during the months before the full opening. Some of them will be exclusively quarantine facilities for now, and some of them we are working with them to tweak the criteria so that while they wouldn't have the full freedom, there will be some limited freedom. So the minister and his team, their work is never done. When you solve one, another one comes. But I must say that there has been excellent collaboration between all stakeholders, immigration, customs, especially support from the Commissioner of Police, excellent support from health, as I said before. Tourism is involved, airport staff, and we have again re-established a multi-sectoral task force approved by cabinet that are going to be working almost every day. Right now they plan to meet every day, every afternoon, to assess what has happened and where they are. So we're happy for that. I do have a schedule here of some of the flights. I'll just want to speak to them briefly, and I'll leave this with you. We have all of the flights. So SVG Air, which travels, of course, to Carriacou, is traveling Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week. Inter-Caribbean Airlines, twice daily. Caribbean Airlines it also has its own schedule. The schedule is not here, but it comes on a regular basis. American Airlines has put up a schedule to start on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday, they would not be coming in. And so you can well imagine we have our work cut out for us. Staff have been looking at the accommodations, what types, what we can allow people to do. And it's an ongoing thing, because as we see certain shortcomings, we work to fix it. So while it's not 100%, I think we have come a long way. Air Canada, I mentioned, it's coming on Mondays and came in yesterday. And for British Airways, the date we have is the 14th of October. We hope that conditions remain the same so that the bookings will intensify. And I must say, Minister, we are so grateful in the sector for the reviewing of the protocols. That made a lot of difference. The bookings came in significantly after that, and we expect it to grow. It has put more responsibility on all of us in this country, and I want to speak a little bit about that. Let me just finish. Virgin Atlantic, 26th of October for the first flight, and Condor, we're talking 6th November. We're still in conversation with these European airlines. This morning, There's probably a meeting ongoing still with Virgin. We had a meeting a few days ago with BA, and we're looking at the logistics, but they have all committed to coming. Of course, this would be subject to certain things. So I will leave this with you. When I'm done, I'll just keep it here in case I need it again. So the hotels, some want to hold on to everything, but we cannot. You cannot do, for example, have persons quarantined, observing the 4 days quarantine that the ministry has asked, and then still want to do local events. How do you keep the people separate? And the creation of the bubble was to keep persons separate, but provide some kind of, as I say, a pleasantness for our visitors. But we cannot be mingling visitors with locals in the same facility. So we had some perhaps misunderstandings there, and GTA is clarifying the issues with those hotels because it will not be tolerated. It makes no scientific sense. It makes no practical sense. Both cannot be done in this COVID time. So these are some of the concerns. We also expect to have, we're working on the attraction sites. We've had some preparations. We've given them the supplies like thermometers, etc., thanks to the Ministry of Health. We managed to scrounge some from them. Minister always complains all of the supplies come from health. Training for the staff, we have done that, but training has to be ongoing. Reminders have to be there, and we are looking at now scheduling groups, because if you're trying to avoid mass gathering and everybody can come when they want to come, the same thing you're trying to avoid, this is what might present itself. So we're asking the Grenadian public to work with us. The tour operators work with us. So if one individual from Grenada just wants to go to Granada, that should be okay. But if a family or a group, we put instructors in place so that they can make requests, so that for the safety of everybody, our visitors, and very importantly, our locals. And I know sometimes there's the feeling that, well, it's ours, and we must be able to go to it when we want. We have suffered for months. Government has had to provide financing, payroll support to a number of workers. And those who did not get, they're eager to go back to work. The taxi men are eager to go back to work. All of the farmers, all of those people. And so I'm just begging my Grenadian brothers and sisters to please have consideration for that. The restrictions are not there to keep you out. They are there to safeguard. We will never debar any Grenadian from any one of those of our natural facilities. But if we schedule, we can establish some order and have, have the thing running smoothly so that locals and visitors alike would be happy. I just want to mention briefly that we've also been talking to crews, because it's stayover as well as crews, and the CDC, United States CDC, has extended the no sale to February. But some of those that operate, especially from Europe, they have started cruise in some areas in Europe, and we have had two very interesting proposals. One is from Seabourn, which is a luxury Caribbean, has come up with a luxury Caribbean itinerary, and it includes the same countries that Minister mentioned that are in the bubble. So they're doing Barbados, Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Grenada. It is an excellent opportunity for us, because if a 1 week cruise is leaving Florida, for example, they cannot reach Grenada, because you have to, if it's 1 week, you have to travel to all of the destinations and turn around and get back to your starting point in 1 week. It cannot happen unless there is, and it's for enjoyment, it's for pleasure. So now we're looking at Southern Caribbean. It's good for those islands that we have stayed the course. We have done what we have to do, and we've kept our countries, kept the numbers of cases very low. So what you find now is that we are in in an advantageous bubble. And Grenadians, we must not take this for granted. Just as how we worked hard to get it, we can, well, not just as, we worked hard to get it and maintain it, but we could lose it very easily. So this puts us in a place where Seaborn is asking to come to Grenada with these other islands. And what they're proposing is no contact with locals. So they want to come and they will berth out, well, they wouldn't berth, but they will anchor outside. And they have their own fancy boats and so on. They will transport their guests to a beach. They have requested some beaches and we're looking at it, and I wanted to take a minute to explain that again and to beg cooperation from Grenadians. We know the beach belongs to all of us, but we need to use it too so that we can make a little generate a little revenues and create some jobs. So what they're going to do, they're going to take them to the beach, they're going to do snorkeling, diving, all of the sea activities, and stay only on the beach. They have agreed to pay, even though they're not docking on the port, they will pay all the port charges just as if they had docked. That's number one. They have agreed, we give them a list to purchase some things from us. So every visit, they will purchase some items, maybe the chocolate, some of the crafts and so on. And while they still have an additional figure to give to us, they plan to spend to purchase at least $4,000 per visit. This is a small cruise ship, about 360 persons. We like the numbers. It creates less problems for us. We could handle it better, and they're going to be doing that. They will also give a small donation for us to use in the industry with every visit, and we expect them to start in November, and they go on to April. So this is very good for us until the 20th of April 21st, sorry. So there's going to be the beginning of some funds generated. The port is going to get some much needed funds. They can purchase all of the PPEs, all of the supplies that they need, and so ready when the port is fully opened. And I am very pleased for that. So there'll be minimal risk. And I'm just begging that my brothers and sisters, let them come and enjoy themselves for a few hours. They're not taking our beach from us, but they're starting the business. They're going to be promoting Grenada because they've asked us to prepare some videos that when they market Grenada as a destination, other persons will see it and they will know that Grenada is indeed open and that our beaches are beautiful and they can come and share with us. But at this time, we are sharing with them, but at a distance. We're also talking about later on getting involved with the local groups, the drummers and so, who could stay far off, entertain, do a little bit of dancing, no contact, but that is for another phase depending on how it develops. But for now, anchor out there, come on the beach, enjoy the facilities that the beach has to offer, and return. There is another one, let me just find it briefly. Sea Dream Yacht Club. It's a yacht, and it will be bringing in between 50 and 112 persons. They'll be coming every Saturday from the 7th of November right on to sometime next year. And again, we're negotiating, the port is negotiating with them the charges and so on, what they will pay, and the head tax they're negotiating. And so by the time they're ready in November, we should very much be there. And again, but they are looking at one with a difference because their numbers are small. They are looking at tours that could be arranged for them long before. And of course, I think we could do Annandale, we could do Granatang, and maybe one or two other sites, but again, coordinated and with booking. So they're coming once a week. Seaborn is coming once a fortnight. So I'm just begging that if we can allow them to use some of our beaches just for that period, once per week or once per fortnight, and let us get the industry back on foot. So that's where we are.
Thank you very much, Minister. Certainly some encouraging news on the tourism front, and we all know the significant impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on not just our economy here in Grenada, but economies throughout the world, particularly small tourism-dependent economies like ours. Minister Steele, so I was listening to Minister Modest Cohen talk about all these initiatives, and I'm thinking this is going to create additional work for the Ministry of Health. How are we, in terms of our capacity, able to deal with all of the initiatives, ensuring, that all of the persons involved are properly trained, adhering to the protocols that have been established? What sort of stress is that putting on your ministry, so to speak?
It has not been all rosy. There have been some challenges. I would say that the greatest challenge for the Ministry of Health has been the enforcement of the various protocols which seem to be logical. Having to go around and police, so to speak, non-compliance. Individuals who nationally we've been seeing since February about mass gatherings. Everyone is very much aware of the risk posed by that, but individuals still seem to insist on pushing the envelope, on not following the protocols, or trying to squeeze a little fat, as we say, in. That has been one of the biggest challenges of the Ministry of Health in terms of monitoring that. At the same time, it's the same Ministry of Health officials that are to help police our borders and facilitate the opening for the industry. It's the same Ministry of Health that is looking with Tourism GTA on these new initiatives that the Minister spoke about, to see if there is a way and how, if possible, we can safely do this. So that has been our challenge in terms of it's the same public health officers that have to leave or stretch their time between protecting our borders and then after hours or on weekends and so to police the very citizens that we're trying to protect because they're pushing the envelope or trying to push the envelope. What I would say, just to draw from statements made by the Minister of Health in Barbados yesterday, they had a press conference because Barbados has a cluster of cases now that stemmed from someone home quarantining or quarantining in a villa in a home house and individuals visiting that house to clean the house, not following the protocols and taking the COVID-19 to their own home. The same statement made by the Minister of Health of Barbados is the same thing that we've been saying here, and it holds true here in Grenada. There are 3 lines of defense against COVID-19 now. The first line of defense is border control and quarantining that we implement. The second line of defense, which Barbados is now pulling up because of that cluster, is the contact tracing and isolation. They will find out who was in touch with these individuals, find them, contact them, and isolate them from the rest of the country. That's the second line of defense. And the third line of defense, which is the most important line of the defense, is the population protocols of individuals following the procedures of social or physical distancing, of wearing the masks, of no mass gatherings. If we follow those, and if, hopefully, the individuals in Barbados as a whole followed those procedures, this cluster would not get beyond the point of it being a cluster. And that is what we're seeing for us as well here in Grenada, that we need to move forward with this in mind. That I had too many people saying we don't have COVID-19, so why are all of these restrictions? I'm sure there were Barbadians who were saying that up until Monday morning before that press brief. And it's the same thing we say. There is that possibility, but we see internationally as well, if people are following the protocols, the virus can't spread. So that's all we're saying. The minister has said, and we have been saying as a government, we are doing what we can to ease and open as best as we can, keeping the population safe. We will continue to do that. The Ministry of Health will continue to do that, find ways for us to find the balance between lives and livelihoods. And that is our catchphrase moving forward now. We need to learn how to live with COVID. We are learning very quickly how to live with COVID, finding the balance between lives and maintaining livelihoods. I have no desire to see places shut and people not being allowed to conduct their business or make their income as they did before COVID. So we will work together, and the more we follow the protocols, the more we can do as a nation, as a government, as an economy, as a people, as long as we follow the protocols.
Thank you very much, Minister. To my media colleagues, the floor is now open for questions, that long-awaited moment. Rena Pear from GBN, you're up first. You may proceed with your questions.
Good morning to everybody. Good morning. My first question is directed to Minister for Tourism, Mrs. Cohen. How is the Ministry of, or your ministry is working along with local vendors, such as the spice vendors, to benefit from the cruise ship coming in from October backwards? I know that you have mechanism in place, but what sort of mechanism is put for these persons to also gain from the visit, understanding that the visitors would not be coming to the market directly? Also, as it relates to the hotels, what sort of mechanism is put in place to ensure that the hotels are following procedures, and what level, what kind of procedures are they putting in place to protect their workers? I know that the Ministry of Health already have some procedures in place, and I know that you spoke about having the persons trained, but I understand that there are certain hotels that are saying that the workers must wear a mask, but the guests are not allowed. How does that work if that is the case? Okay. Minister Steele, could you clarify for me as it relates to the quarantine facility that persons have to first book in? Is this facility a normal hotel, or is it a place that is already established by the Ministry of Health? And if it's a normal hotel that somebody would like to be in or spend their entire time at, what sort of procedures are put in place as it relates to going out? Are they allowed to go out on tours? I know a lot of the hotels offer hiking, stuff like that. You know, they bring them different places around the island, interact. What sort of procedures are there to ensure that these things, they don't interact with the local people, or they don't get, involved with them, understanding that they're not tested with the CPR? Also, again, one more question to you.
Rena, can we pause here? You've already given 3 questions. Let's allow the minister to respond. We'll take a couple of questions from other journalists, and then we'll come back to you. Minister Modest Cohen.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rena, for the questions. I'll endeavor to answer the 2. The vendors, as we know, most of the craft persons, and so we will not be starting anything initially for persons to go to purchase. But it's something that we're working towards. We have started since even during the what we call the lockdown period, we communicated with, we did training sessions by Zoom with our various stakeholders, and the vendors were all included. Now, however, with the cruise ship, the seaborne that I spoke about, and when I mentioned that with every visit they'd be purchasing some local things, I don't know if I mentioned craft, but craft is among them as well, and the chocolate and so on. What is going to happen is that the agent that they have here will every time purchase some things from those vendors and kind of rotate it around so that as many can get as possible. So that has been taken into consideration. Keep them safe, keep them not in contact as much as possible, but the agreement is that the tour operator will give, as far as possible, every vendor a little touch. Well, most vendors, I can't say all. One ship is coming in 21 times, one is coming in 18 times before they take a break. So we have to look at the numbers that could get the sales from that. In terms of the monitoring, that is an undertaking that is spearheaded by the ministry. In terms of the how, by the Ministry of Health, in close collaboration with tourism and GTA, because we realize that people, even when they know what is good for them, they get carried away. And we cannot just expect persons to comply as they want to. The hotel bubble that we spoke about, we insist that they must have security and their own security. However, we are aware that if you pay the piper, you can call the tune. So there is some room for some breaking of the rules right there. So we're working with the Ministry of Youth. We have a list of youth. Some of them have been given a preliminary training. We're working on intensifying the training, and health will speak to that at the appropriate time. These young persons will be trained in what to look for in the hotel. Very basic things. And you don't have to be a physician to do that, whether there's social distancing, whether there's the hand sanitizing on entry, whether you have soap in the bathrooms and all of that for persons to use. And they will work along with the Ministry of Health staff who are available. And there are persons in GTA who also inspect facilities to license them. So these persons have been also trained as to what to look out for, and they will be going out with those persons. It is my hope that eventually those imanis will mature enough, because I see some traffic wardens doing a good job on their own. Initially they were always with the police, but now they work on their own sometimes, and as I said, they're doing a good job. So this is the biggest source of human resource that we're looking forward to help us monitor those situations. Of course, the police is well involved, so they may be making the patrols as they usually do, and doing some spot checking as well to advise. So Minister may want to add to that.
Let me add a little, and then I'll take my question to the protocols with respect to hotel workers, keeping hotel workers safe. In June, other CARICOM countries opened, namely those that we're looking at, St. Lucia and Jamaica. St. Lucia in particular has had, up to the end of August or middle of September, 6,000 visitors come in, with the various protocols that they initiated for their hotel workers and their citizens, as well as the visitors. Not a single transmission of COVID-19. We use that as the first step in saying, well, this is something we would look at. Because we said in June, with the CARICOM heads and CARICOM health ministers, and tourism ministers, I believe, that Grenada would wait. We are not going to rush ahead with this. We, like St. Lucia, had closed our borders in March. We, like St. Lucia, had gotten to 0 days. Zero cases, sorry. We, like St. Lucia, had shut down. But we said we would wait. We were in a different economic position that allowed us to say that as well. After looking at what has happened in St. Lucia and Jamaica with respect to their hospitality sector, we looked at their protocols, procedures, their mechanism for monitoring and enforcing and rechecking, and said that we could adopt this. So we worked with our partners. We worked with Ministry of Tourism, Tourism Authority, Grenada Hotel and Tourism Authority, even SGU, and some of the hoteliers to find this mechanism. They were already tried and practiced policies. So that is what we are using. In essence, hotel workers, I think the main protocols for the Ministry of Health, and worthwhile mentioning to the nation, hotel workers must be transported by the hotel to and from the facility. They will change into their uniforms when they get to the facility. They must be allowed at the end of their shift to change back but shower, and they must be transported again by the facility to their home, so that a hotel worker does not have to take public transportation to get to and from the job. And they will be tested on a regular basis, almost weekly. Those are the main protocols that once the wearing of the mask and the distancing is maintained on the job, has been tried and tested in St. Lucia and Jamaica. And just add with respect to the vendors, there's more than one way to sell a product. I think that the value for our vendors is that they spend their time to design their work. They make, in most cases, their art. But Minister Morris has said it will be displayed at the facilities also, and that's the model that the Ministry of Health would like to see. That craft is displayed at the facility and sold by the hotels on behalf of the vendors, and they can collect without having that interaction there. If and when we can see it possible to train vendors in groups and so that they follow the protocols as well, that they can have that distance interaction, I would look forward to that. But we're not there yet. We don't want to take that chance. Quarantine facilities now range from some of our top hotels all the way to private apartments, and, as I've said, private homes as well. The facilities that we're asking individuals to make reservations for range from a hotel like a Sandals or a Silver Sands all the way to private apartments. There are certain criterias that the Ministry of Health insisted on seeing in order to approve. So we jointly approved with GTA, but one of the criterias was that they must have a controlled single entrance. If they have more than one entrance, it must be controlled with security, 24-hour security. They must take the responsibility and have the ability to keep the guests at the facility. The same way that they have security to keep the guests, to keep people off the facility, that's the same type of security to keep people on the facility. They have to take personal responsibility as well, because they're collecting money from people, so they have to take that personal responsibility to ensure that the guests who are in quarantine, or the guests who have gone beyond day 4 but have not taken the PCR test, that they remain within their care at the facility. If the hotel, and some have applied, we have not approved any of them as yet for it, but some have applied to do tours and requested that. And Minister Morris alluded to some of the possible locations or types of tours. We are contemplating that, but are looking at further details there. They must be able to transport the guests to and from, if it is an off-site location, to and from that facility, that place, without any interaction with the rest of us. It may necessitate that the place that they're going to remains closed to the rest of the public during the time of the visit, the half hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour time, and then is sanitized, etc., so that we can go back and enjoy our own heritage sites and so as well. So there will be that if and when those tours are approved. That is the type of mechanism that we put in place. With respect to some hotels that already have their own in-house dive tours or boats or so, that can be done because the guest is leaving, going out to sea and coming back with the same hotel staff that have been trained to follow the protocols. And it depends on the activity as well. There'll be more stringent controls or less stringent controls compared to, for instance, a snorkeling activity would have more controls than a simple sunset cruise. But that, in essence, is what we're looking at in order to keep the rest of us safe, but to allow as much safe activity as possible for those visiting and those in quarantine. So it means that a Grenadian returning home can go stay at a Sandals as well, can go stay at an apartment, can go stay at a Silver Sands, can go stay at a Koyaba. We spoke to Koyaba and they are contemplating it, but have not made that decision as yet because Koyaba is respecting one of the criteria that we have put in place as well, which is if you are safe travel approved facility, then you are a safe travel approved facility. If you are a homestay facility, then you are a homestay facility. Some properties can afford to do both because of the size or how the property is built, that they can have one separate location for homestay and another for safe travel approved. But if you cannot do that, then you cannot do that, and you cannot have both.
Thank you very much for your responses, both ministers. Nancy Maguire, you're up next. Please proceed with your questions. Nancy, are you still with us? Okay, I'm not hearing anything from Nancy there. We'll come back to her. Callistra, you're
Hello?
next.
Good morning.
Hi, Nancy. Good morning. Okay, you may proceed. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. I'm just wondering about the anticipated increase in Grenadians returning home as we have more flights, and how the home inspections are going to be accommodated, because I've spoken to people that arrived on the flight from Canada yesterday, and their home was not approved, and there was a bit of confusion at the airport. So are we going to need more officers to inspect these homes? Secondly, earlier the government announced it had hired Caribbean International Travel to manage the logistics and all the things for people coming home or visiting here. Is that company still managing these services? And finally, is there any discussion with the airlines in their resumption of flights that they would be able to carry all the lost and misdirected mail that has not arrived in our country since February? Thank you.
First question with respect to home inspections. If individuals follow the procedures, the ministry should be able to, with a stretch, should be able to inspect. Remember, 7 days in advance, an application being made. If an application is being made 7 days in advance, the ministry will make every effort and should be able to inspect that home and be able to approve or deny the facility. What we have had happening is individuals making a reservation at one of the pure safe travel approved facilities, and then on arrival saying that they have no ability or no intention of paying for that, and at that point right there at the airport want us to approve their home for homestay. That is not practical for us to do and not safe for us to do. So this is why we are saying, if you are returning, you are most welcome. If you are visiting, you are most welcome. In fact, if you are returning, you're entitled. But quarantine is necessary, and there are options for those of us who are Grenadians, and that is home quarantine or at one of the facilities. But the Ministry of Health does need the time, reasonable time, in which to inspect. I doubt any of the individuals who came in who have put us in this predicament without the advance notice planned within 24 hours to come to Grenada. They would have known in advance that they were coming to Grenada. I do understand that the ministry only recently announced the option of homestay, but before that, if an individual was planning to and was told clearly that you have to stay at one of the facilities and you have to make a reservation, and every individual that arrived made reservations. But some, in fact on Saturday, a total of 69 who made reservations arrived on Saturday and told the Ministry of Health personnel at the airport they have no intention of staying in those those places, and left it to us to make that split-second decision and then criticize that we couldn't make that decision right there and then at the airport. So we cannot do that. We will not do that. We have to protect all of us, including those who are returning, and therefore it's a 7-day in advance request for homestay Once approved, the procedures are clear in terms of you have to have the contact tracing watch, you will be swabbed there at the airport, and then again on day 4, the second test is at the expense of the individual. The first test for everybody is covered. If you are home staying, then you are required to have a second test, and it is at the expense of the individual. And you must be transported by approved transportation. So the other part of your question, which was whether the service provider is still involved, most definitely. Individuals do have the option, still have the option. And I recommend that they use that option. It makes things a lot more seamless for all involved. That they use the option of this individual company that will put all of these things together for them. But they also have the right and the prerogative to make the arrangements themselves. With respect to mail, that I cannot answer from a health standpoint. I know that this isn't just a challenge for Grenada, but a challenge worldwide as airlines and the regular schedule airlines that would have been bringing mail, and I think the challenge most definitely is mail from the UK or Europe in general that will have normally be funneled through the UK. My assumption is that it is not just, and I say my assumption, it is not just a challenge of the Postal Corporation here, but a challenge for Royal Mail in the UK as well. So with us opening up as best as possible and these flights coming in, I would expect that these problems will begin to solve themselves.
If I may just add one thing on that, is that we have an airlift committee, and one of the members of the committee is an exporter of local produce who represents, of course, farmers and producers. And this has been, well, not the mail per se, but the whole transport of cargo, because Amerijet has not been able to service all of the needs. And this is the next stage we're going to be looking at, speaking to the airline to assist, because prior to COVID, airlines brought in cargo and whatever else, mostly took out cargo to UK, and interestingly, some even took it to the US via UK. And these are some of the things that we're discussing now, as they have a schedule to come back, but I can't say when. We have not concluded.
Thank you very much for that update, Minister Modest Kerwin, and for your responses as well, Minister Steele. Callistra Faria, you are up next. Please proceed with your questions.
Good morning, ministers. I'll start with the Minister of Health, and then I have questions for both ministers, so I'll just do one and then the other. The police is taking a very soft approach to the enforcing the protocols. They have said so themselves at their last news conference they gave. Given how critical it is for us to batten the hatches at home, has the Ministry of Health approved that approach, that soft approach of enforcement? There are breaches of protocol all over the place. Visibly, you can see everything. Is the Ministry of Health approving that approach by the police who are responsible for enforcement? Also, you said homestay is a recent thing. I know the ministry quite some time ago had promoted it as available. So can you explain that, please, why it was not available at the time when it was presented, or what do you mean by it being recent now? And thirdly, Spice Isle Imaging, one of the largest private medical facilities on the island, not chosen to be part of the privatization of COVID testing. Can you tell us why Spice Isle Imaging is not on that list of approved facilities? Is it that they were not interested or not approved by the Ministry of Health?
Thank you, Callistra. With respect to the police taking a soft approach, I disagree, and I'm sure the police themselves would disagree. I think the word that they would have used, or the more appropriate description, is a reserved approach. And I think in general our RGPF adopts that policy. They're very reserved. with their approach. They can use extreme force from the get-go, but choose not to and make that conscious decision. That was why there was a press conference with senior officials from the Ministry of Health and Royal Grenada Police Force, speaking from the same hymn sheet, so to speak, as to informing, reminding, requesting that individuals follow the protocols by law, and that there would be a gradual a stepping up of the enforcement of that. So as to question as to whether the Ministry of Health approves of, I would go further to say the Ministry of Health and the Royal Grenada Police Force, with respect to the enforcement of the restrictions, speak from the same hymn sheet. We meet together, we discuss together, we plan together, and we enforce together. Home quarantine has been available, yes. What we have done in this last iteration of our entry protocols is to make it straightforward, plain, and simple. We have allowed home quarantine in the past based on special circumstances and those who requested. We have now made it clear, plain, and transparent how an individual is to apply, should they want to apply, and what are the criterias in the decision-making process to approve or not to approve. And with respect to spatial imaging or any other health facility, the Ministry of Health did not request of any health facility that they join us in testing. Health facilities on their own, private health facilities that is, took the initiative and came to the Ministry of Health for approval. In fact, some of the health facilities, there are two in particular that have been approved. One of the two complained about the length of time it took for the approval of that process. But as far as I'm concerned, we're all in this together. Our private providers are our partners as well in healthcare, and we would welcome any other, including Spicel if they so chose, any other private facility that came up with an approved testing model to join us with that. So it's not a restriction, and we didn't go ask anybody. We approved those who requested approval and met the criteria.
Thank you very much, Minister. Rena, we'll come quickly back to you. You had some follow-up questions. Rena, you have the floor.
I did not get to ask questions, so I'm opening Minister to resume.
Kalistra, you just had 3 questions. Let's go back to Rena. We'll come back to you in a few. Rena, do you have your questions?
Yes, I have my questions.
You may proceed.
Minister, I know one of the complaints made by persons, Minister Steele, I'm speaking to just to clarify, one of the complaints made by persons is regarding the issue of the website, the Ministry of Health website not being updated. So could you tell me how often that is being done, along with what is the procedure for persons coming into the country from Trinidad and Tobago and other Caribbean countries that are affected by COVID-19 tremendously? I'm not sure if you said that previously. And is the government considering removing the days of testing from 7 to 3? Because we have places like Barbados where we have to transit only accepting persons with the testing 3 days prior, and persons are left stranded in these areas.
With respect to the website, yes, there is a brand new website up. It's constantly updated now and monitored, and there will be further upgrades within the next 7 to 10 days, upgrades. The website will be adjusted if any of the protocols change, and is adjusted with respect to those countries that are green zone countries. That adjustment occurs approximately every 14 days based on the WHO protocols, etc. The other part as to how we treat Trinidad, I would think that, and the same answer can be given for Jamaica. Both of those countries, based on the number of cases per 100,000 in the last 14 days, place them in yellow, if not red zone. And therefore they're treated like the rest of yellow or red zone. 7-day PCR test, no older than, and another PCR test done on the 4th day of quarantine, and you wait until those results before you are allowed to leave. The question of asking for 3-day old PCR test before travel as opposed to 7-day, we recognize right now that it's not practical to request that. While it is ideally acceptable from a border protection standpoint, it's not practical in most of the countries that people are coming from. So if you are going to say that you are open but have restrictions, it's not practical to put restrictions that aren't possible to be met. We are seeing right now the possibility that those restrictions or that criteria can be met out of the UK, but most definitely not out of the US. But it's being met out of the UK at considerable cost. That PCR test, in some cases, is as much as £300. And for our returning residents, as Minister Modest has alluded to, and we all know, we have people out that are still stuck outside, that have been seeing difficult times, like the rest of us, but difficult times, and they do have a right to return as best as possible, and as a government we need to facilitate as best as possible their return within our means. So I do look forward to the possibility of us going to the 72-hour testing protocols, and if and when we feel it is practical to put that in place, we will. But at the moment, the 7-day is what we have, and I think many other countries are using that as well.
Thank you, Minister. Calistro, we're back with you.
Thank you, Philo. I have 3 questions again. Do we get 3 questions on the second go? Minister, on August 2nd, you said a while ago in responding to my question regarding testing that the ministry, that you did not send out requests. But I believe on August 2nd, you did say in an interview with us, that a one-on-one interview response, that you did, that RFPs were sent out to the medical fraternity on the issue of COVID-19 testing. So could you explain that, please? Based on what you just said, that you did not send out any requests to anyone, but on August 2nd, you did say something that leads one to believe that requests were sent out. And for Minister Modest, also, can you tell me how we are going to police the beaches? Which beaches are approved for the cruise passengers when they come in? And how are we going to monitor this? What happens if, will we be closing the beaches at a particular time? Or, what happens if a group of passengers show up and a Grenadian is there relaxing on the beach? Do we ask them to move? Or are we choosing beaches where nobody goes, which might be difficult in Grenada? How are we going to handle the beach aspect, and which beaches are approved, if any? And also, the aviation, the hotel, the airport, was supposed to, 2 years ago announced that they were putting up a new hangar at Morris Bishop International, at Pearls Airport. Can you give me a status update on that, as well as the Chinese loan situation? How are we, the status of the loan from China to upgrade the airport, and whether Grenada can repay the loan, a loan of that magnitude to the Chinese, $150 million.
Well, thank you. And as I see, Calistro, you're calling Philo so you could get 3 questions in.
I always call her Philo. We go back a long, long way.
just to say that on 2nd of August, I still hold. The RFP that went out was for individuals to provide management and labor of our tests. So it still would have been our PCR test at our government lab. We were sent out RFPs asking individuals to provide the personnel to do the testing at the airport and transport the test to our lab. What you have that's different is you have two private facilities here in Grenada that are doing their own testing. It's a different test to what we do at the government lab. It's different to what we and SU do. It is a test that we have approved for a use here in Grenada to determine if somebody does or does not have COVID-19. They can use one of those two tests, and that's what makes the difference or separates what I'm saying, that no other private entity has come forward with their request to do their own testing or their own type of test, and that the RFP that went out in August was for individuals to provide the management and labor to take the test samples and transport them to the general hospital for us to test.
Okay. I don't have what we call a pet name to call Callistra, so I'll just say, my dear friend Callistra, good day. Okay, you ask a very deep question, and it is something that we keep. There's a task force, a cruise ship task force that comprises of the operators, the agents, port people, that sort of thing. And that is one of the things we're organizing about, because we know Grenadians love their beaches and they're very, very, very protective about their beaches. We have shared it before, but with a mix. Now we're looking at a safety issues where we would like to protect our people, and we prefer not to see a mix at this time on the beach. Where the cruise ships are asking for the similar thing, the yacht and the luxury cruise ship, they're asking for that kind of separation, and we believe it's a good initial step. Now, how we do it, we have a list of beaches that we're trying to avoid Grandans, especially because it's the most frequented beaches by locals. As far as possible, they have asked for Grandans, and it's no rocket science to know why. It is still on the list, but we believe it will be more difficult to separate that. So we're looking for other beaches that are less populated. And we also, I really welcome this opportunity to start this discussion on it, to get feedback maybe from my sister Callistra and the media. How do we do it? And my dear colleague minister spoke about saving lives and livelihoods. We're saving lives by the non-contact, by not having the mass gathering between visitors and locals alike. But we're also seeking to start livelihoods. We're also seeking to start marketing Grenada and to say to the world, Grenada is opening up for business. How do we do it? Because even on the most remote beach, you might still find somebody there, and you ask a very good question. Do we ask them to leave the beach? What we plan to do, we have dates already when they're going to come. One is going to come once fortnightly, once in 14 days. The other one weekly, once in 7 days. I believe if we look at that, and we plan to have more discussions. As a matter of fact, we in tourism have been mandated by our cabinet, make sure we do the consultations on it. I believe that persons would see the need for it, to give our working population in the industry that kind of opportunity. And as we nail down the beaches, we have a list we have not finalized, and the cruise operators, they know that, because we made them understand in the first instance our people are very protective of the beach. But we also believe that our people are reasonable enough, and if we explain it, and if it's not frequent enough, they'd be willing to give up some hours on the beach so that other persons can enjoy it, understanding that it is not just to deny them, but to have a win-win situation where port can start operating, the craft people can start getting a little bit of sale for the goods and so on. And Minister mentioned what would happen at the hotels. the hotels will allow them to display their goods and so on. We cannot allow the contact to sell the goods, and so they are going to be purchased. I think we as Grenadians could give up the beach for 1 day per week. Or it might be 2 days, because in the week when the fortnight ends for the other one, it might be 2 days a week for some hours to allow people to go, just to observe safety. So we have not finalized. We're going to be talking about it some more, and we welcome. The media might be able to pick up things that the public are saying more than us, and we welcome feedback. And Philo, I want to take advantage of the endearment. If you could perhaps assist us in setting up that kind of forum whereby we can get feedback. But I am strongly convinced that there will be a win-win situation, and our people will respond positively to this, especially when you know it's your friend or your relative who is making a living out of it. The other question about the new hangar, there have been a number of concepts on what to do with Pearl's Airport. There have been expressions of interest from private sector. Airport has looked at it as a good bridging facility, and we had also looked at using it as a training facility for civil aviation persons who want to be pilots and so on. There was an opportunity that presented itself before. I'm not sure where it is at this time. However, for our MBIA, our main airport, and the loan that was asked about, we are going to be launching, doing the south turning for that project on the 14th of October. Do I have the date right?
The dates will actually be adjusted to later October, but we have to finalize.
It might be adjusted, but it was set for that. But we're looking forward to doing the south turning. So the arrangements have been made, the scope of works have been settled, and so on and so on and so on. The thing is, the kinds of planes that come are determined in part by your airport, by your space, by your hangars, the facilities that you provide for other flights. We've had the flights I spoke about. These are traditional flights. In your sleep, you could remember Virgin, BA. We want to look at maybe the same airlines, different kind of aircraft, or a completely different airline, because don't forget that prior to COVID, our numbers were increasing, both in stayover and cruise. And this is what we would like to forge ahead with, bringing in more passengers. We need to have an expanded. I mean, we go in some of the other islands, they're same size without they're smaller. They have better facilities than us. Our neighboring sister, St. Vincent, when they opened, since they opened, they were able to attract certain airlines that we have not been able to. So the reality is, and when you see what happened before, pre-COVID, on a Saturday, when the JetBlues and the American and whoever else were coming in, the BAs, it was chaotic there because, I mean, the staff managed well, don't get me wrong, but it was extremely difficult. I believe that we need that expansion. It's much needed. And I believe that if we handle it right, the airport itself will be able to generate income to pay for it. But we'll be able to attract more flights and more business. So we should be able to pay for it by the grace of God.
Thank you very much, Minister. Well, it is now 20 minutes after 11 o'clock. I think we have extended our briefing this morning, but we've had some quite quality questions from the media and a wealth of information shared by both ministers. At this time, I'll ask both ministers to provide closing statements, if they may so choose. Minister Steele, we can start with you.
Thank you. Whatever happened to ladies first, but anyway, I will leave the final word to my dear sister. Just to say that, look, we have to learn to live with the threat of COVID. We have to find a balance between lives and livelihoods, saving lives and saving livelihoods. This initiative has been well thought out. We've taken our time and observed others who have gone ahead before, like St. Lucia and Jamaica, and have adopted their tried and tested policies. The biggest risk we have is not any different to the risk that Trinidad, Jamaica, or Barbados or so has had. It is individuals not following the protocol. That is our biggest risk. Our biggest risk is not re-engaging in trade. We have businesses open all over Grenada and are doing so safely. And we do have some examples of those who are not. That is where our risk is, when people do not comply. Our risk isn't allowing people to home quarantine. Our risk is those who are allowed when they don't follow the protocols or procedures. Our risk is not having hotel workers entertain people visiting. Our risk is when hotel workers entertain people visiting without following the protocols. So it's the same for all of us. Those who are transporting our nation day to day, those who are educating our nation, those who are feeding our nation, those who are policing our nation, and also the medical team that is looking after our nation. We must all follow the protocols. Any breach on the protocols is a possible breach in our national security and allowing COVID back in. So I urge everyone to follow and let us all find the way to coexist, to fet in smaller numbers with a little more distance from us, to make some additional compromises so that as many of us as possible can get back to maintaining their own livelihoods. We are going to have to be our brother and sisters keepers in this and make some compromises. So I may not for an hour or two get to go to the beach on a certain day of the week so that my neighbor can actually get an income. I think is a reasonable compromise. It's not giving up of a sovereign constitutional right to use the beach. It is making a compromise so that my brother or sister, fellow Grenadian, can get an income. That is what I hope we will all follow through with. And also in closing, COVID-19 is not our only health risk. It is rainy season. We do have dengue. There have been deaths in St. Vincent from dengue. We do know how dengue is spread. It's the mosquito. COVID-19, we put the mask on and we kept our distance and we protected ourselves as a nation. It wasn't the Ministry of Health that just simply went wrong and fumigated or disinfected places. We all as a people came together and fought COVID. To fight dengue, we all as a people have to come together and fight dengue too and get rid of the mosquitoes. It's not just the Ministry of Health to just go around and fog. Use repellents, get rid of the source of breeding of mosquitoes around our homes, and we will fight and be successful with dengue the same way we have been successful with COVID. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Steele. From my next statements, you would understand why I left the tourism minister for last. Because in her closing statement, I'm going to ask her to address a couple of questions that have come in. Minister, I can just outline them all to you. Are there other islands with similar tourism initiatives as those that we are embarking on? The number of hotels that are classified as safe and the translation of that into room numbers, if we have that. And also, what would be your response to those who will argue about constitutional rights violations for not being able to go on the beach when they want to?
Well, thank you. Let me see if how I can do that. Other islands. Minister Steele mentioned St. Lucia and Jamaica, particularly the experience with sandals. It has been amazing. And I have a friend who is a physician working in Miami. And you know, Miami was a very, very hot spot, probably still continues to be. And he said, you know, at one time you saw a long list of healthcare workers who were dying. Now they have the proper PPEs. Now they are more compliant because they see that their friends have died. The numbers have gone down dramatically in terms of healthcare workers who have died. And he says, look, I attend to patients every day of my life and we're safe. It's not a boast, but he was trying to to tell me when I was grappling with this whole thing about allowing visitors in and so on. And he said, look, and I said, could you talk to the hoteliers and let them give them encouragement? And he had promised to do that, but something came up. But he was saying to me that if we follow the basic principles of the protocols, the distancing, hand washing, etc., that we could prevent the disease. I mean, there might be a breach somewhere that where the virus might be able to get in, but by and large we can protect. And what the other hotels have done is testimony to that. In terms of the cruise, I listed those that are in the bubble: St. Kitts and Nevis, Barbados, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They are in that package with the seaborne. It will be going to various beaches over a period of time. The other one with the yacht, which would carry about 50 to 112 persons, that one, it'll be coming specifically to Pure Grenada, Gem of the Caribbean, from Barbados, Grenada. That is where it would be. And I think they said they would go to some of the small islands, the beaches in St. Vincent. So I think it's a Barbados, St. Vincent, Grenada initiative. So it's not, in either one of them, it's not Grenada only. So maybe if we're looking at the risk, it's a shared risk, but everybody would have, delved into it and looked at it, and we believe that it can work. In terms of the constitutional rights, I would say it's a constitutional right to be able to earn a living too, and to live and to be able to exist. And I don't know if it has to come to that, frankly. I don't believe it has to get there. I think what we have to aim to do is to be transparent, let people know what the schedule is, how we're going to be benefiting, to ensure that our locals do benefit from it. And I believe some people will be happy to give it up for a while so that their brother and sister and their neighbor can live. So, yes, you could. People can argue that, but I think it goes beyond that. I think it goes into the realm of saving humanity, because if you have a steady income, you perhaps don't understand what it is and you have not lost yours. Perhaps you may not understand, but we get letters. We get requests. Could you please open back again, talk to the crews to take us back, etc., etc. And these are people who are out there hurting. And my dear advisor is there, and she could tell that we have had to ask people, visit so and so, see what's going on. Let's try and see what we can do. So we know the hurting out there, and I believe it is incumbent. It is a national responsibility that we work together to deal with that. So that is my general statement. I expect my brothers and sisters, we're not imposing. We're just asking that we team up together to save lives and restore jobs.
Thank you very much, Minister. And do I take that as your closing comments as well?
Except just to say, to support my brother in that if we do what we have to do, I want to end on that. All of the protocols, I think everybody knows it by heart now. The children know. If we follow those protocols, we can minimize the risk. And if the risk, there's a breakthrough somewhere, we can, how shall I say, contain it in quick time if all of us work together and do what we have to do. So my brothers and sisters, please let's join hands. We're all in this together. I believe we can make it with all my heart.
Thank you very much, Minister Modest Cohen, and to you as well, Honorable Nicholas Steele, for facilitating this morning's post-cabinet press briefing. It has been a long one, but a very informative one, a very important one, as we step up our efforts to reopen our borders. Commercial flights are resuming, and the Ministry of Health has announced new entry protocols. That was the focus of our discussion here this morning, and the weekly post-cabinet briefing is intended to keep you abreast of developments within government. I am Press Secretary Philomena Robertson. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We'll see you again next week.
All right, guys, and there we have it, a post-cabinet briefing facilitated by the Honorable Clarence Minas Cohen, and of course, the Honorable Minister of Health, Honorable Nicholas Steele. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Grenada. Good morning, Carriacou. Good morning, P.T. Martinique. I'm just going to give Mr. Bola a quick moment to say good morning because we don't have much time to talk to you this morning. So, good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Duncan. Thank you for that. Good morning to our listeners. I hope you did listen attentively to the press briefing this morning, or the post-cabinet press briefing as it's called. I think that both ministers had quite interesting and intriguing information for us, information that would leave some questions in the heads of some of us. But of course, I think what is being attempted there is to bring back some activity, some liveliness into the economy, especially through the tourism sector and the protocols that are laid down. And we have to expect that there are some things on some days based on what was discussed that may be a little more challenging, but of course, with the information, and I hope the consultation that will follow would all eventually understand what needs to happen and work accordingly, so that livelihoods, as is being mentioned, can be retained, and at the same time lives of Grenadians and everyone else in Grenada can be protected. So
absolutely,
it's Tuesday. Not a lot of time has been said. We are almost already out of time. It was a post-cabinet briefing that went on beyond the hour as they normally will take. But very intriguing and important information came out of it.
And of course, also, Mr. Bola, we want to pay attention to the protocols, those protocols that were mentioned. New protocols, as it may be, for people returning or people planning to visit the Carriacou. And we did speak about it briefly last week for the people who were interested. And I think the minister would have solved one of the problems that we had last week with one of our callers who indicated that he has an iPhone and he's having difficulty downloading the app. The app that you're supposed to get when you're coming in, and Minister did allude to the fact that they were having some difficulties with that operating system that should have been resolved or should be close to being resolved. So we are really hoping that gets sorted so people with their iPhones can download the information for the re-entry into Grenada. But a lot of information was given, a lot of hope. A lot of hope, I would say. We are at a fragile stage, Mr. Bola, where we are now finding that niche, finding a new normal, working on the different aspects of that new normal, what may or may not work, what we have to tweak, what we may have to leave, what we may have to take out, whatever those different things are. We are looking at, all of these different things to give us that opportunity, give us that opportunity to earn a living, go back to where we need to be, all of that, because it's for some people it's really been hard.
For most people, not just in Grenada but around the world. But let's zero in at home, Ms. Duncan. COVID-19 did bring about a lot of changes in the way we did things, in the way people live, and with those changes came hardship for many persons. Even for those who continued to earn during the period that COVID had been prevalent around us, and it's still there. As a country, we're probably not suffering from actual cases at the moment, but the effects of it we are still grappling with. And I recalled very early when the pandemic began, right on this program, I had said that even if Grenada doesn't record one positive case of COVID, that doesn't mean that the effects, the negative effects, so to speak, of COVID, that we are going to be spared of it. And we, like most other countries, regionally and internationally, have experienced those difficulties, are experiencing those difficulties, and will continue to experience those difficulties as long as COVID remains.
Absolutely.
We are independent as a country, but we are still interdependent on so many other countries to trade with whatever it is we are able to export, but also we are, as we know it, a net import country, and we import quite a lot of what we consume, but also a lot of what keeps the wheels of our economy turning comes from outside. The yachting service, the tourist trade, our hotels and hoteliers, and the workers depend highly on the number of flights that we get at our airports. The cruise ships coming in, our restaurants and fast food places depend highly on those. Our farmers, our taxi drivers, our fishermen, our water taxi operators, our walking tour guides, our sites. Depend heavily on these people coming in, paying their fees, visiting, eating, drinking, or craft vendors. There are even some people who neither sell craft nor clothing, but I used to see them all the time, and I think they still exist, that would have a little brush and a comb and sometimes some beads. And when people come in, they would braid their hair and do those things. All of those are means of survival, informally in some instances, for a lot of people. Now, all of these people, all of them have been out of a bread, so to speak, because the mainstream of income has been interrupted. The mainstream of income had a blockage. It was stopped. The normal flow is no longer happening because of COVID. The planes stopped coming in. The cruise liners stopped coming in. These people have to search elsewhere. But here's what. Most other sectors have also been affected. So the complaints and concerns are out there. And that's one part. So government has to find a way. How can we either reintroduce for you what you have been doing in a safer environment, in a safer way, that you can continue to ply your trade, you can continue to get your earnings, you can continue by the means of how you used to do it before, to take care of yourself and your family and those who are dependent on you, but at the same time not contract the virus and take it home to them. Likewise, so much other areas we can look at. I mean, we only talk about the vendors and those people, the taxi men who made a couple of dollars, the water taxi and whoever else. But as we have been told from conservative figures, estimates of those who have been directly impacted as employees of the tourism and hotel sector, there were upwards of 4,000 people who have lost their job because there are no occupants in the hotel, no guests, so no one needs to work. You don't have to clean rooms, you don't have to make up beds, you don't have to wash utensils, you don't have to cook for anyone because there is no one occupying. So these people are home. Government gave a little stimulus, I think for 3 months, 40% of whatever they were working for. But it's been, 7 going on to 8 months now since COVID had really hit us really tough. Now, after those 3 months stimulus, which was, remember, only 40% of the salary, the expectation was that some of the owners of these facilities or establishments would have given them something as well, right? Whether they did it or not, I don't know. But even if they did, I mean, come on, let's think about how difficult it is to live. Now, while you have to deal with all of these realities, you also have to take into deep consideration the realities of those who are not affected in this way, but are concerned that by you reopening the economy, you are creating a greater possibility of infections coming in, and my life is at danger. And you have to wait. And that's why very early we said, leadership and governance is not about the amount of noise you make, but it's about the ability of the people who are placed in those positions and has the responsibility to calmly sit, look at all the issues, weigh all the matters, and make prudent decisions that will assist the people.
For the betterment of all the people.
All the people.
All the people.
Right? And let's face it, let's be very realistic. Even if you are anti-NNP and Kit Mitchell and the government and everybody else as bad as you want to, there isn't much people on this earth, Grenada or anywhere else, that can be so perfect with their judgment in this time.
Yeah.
That whatever decision they take will not have at least a minimal negative impact on some sector of society, some individual, some group, or some person. No. You would want to, as much as possible, try to make whatever you do, whatever decision you take, have the most positive effect on everyone. But it is almost difficult. Even Christ himself, the Savior of this earth, was crucified.
Yep.
Even when he didn't commit any act. When Pontius Pilate asked, what wrong has this man done unto you, when they brought him before Pontius Pilate? They couldn't answer. They said, crucify him. So imagine that. And I'm making that analogy to say that I don't know of a government, a prime minister, a country where whatever decisions are taken,
all the people
are going to agree, and that it may not have some minimal negative effect. The issue here is that we need to look at the bigger picture and see what is for the greater good. And as been said, we have to preserve lives
and livelihoods,
but we also have to protect livelihoods.
Yeah.
Because what good is it to ensure that we do not contract COVID? We don't bring it here, and we don't want it at all. We hope
don't
it
have
never
mass
comes
infection.
back. We don't have mass infection. We shouldn't have no infection at all.
Yeah.
But if nobody can provide food to put on table, if the government is collecting no resources to continue to provide the services that it is expected to provide for the people, what good is that? So I'm just saying in a nutshell, as we're running out of time totally, we need as a people to calm down a little bit, talk about issues, have dialogue, but at the same time, understand the predicament that we are in as a country and as a people, and give as much support as we possibly can to the means that government are trying to deal with. Of course, if we foresee or we have reason to believe or we have information that a decision being taken or something to be implemented may have negative repercussions and actions, it is our responsibility and duty, so to say, or bring to the attention of those in authority. But sometimes all we do is jump on Facebook and all other platforms and behave as though we are perfectionists ourselves. And we would make no mistake, we would have no shortcoming, and lambaste and just cry down the character of people just because of something that we cited. And sometimes we cite those things even without having all of the information.
Yeah.
So I say, let the dialogue continue. Yes, of course, they would want to know, and I did hear the minister, both of them expressing the need for consultation and with the whole issue of the reintroduction of the cruise ships and the utilization of beaches, said to the media this morning that you too may have ideas. And we are open. We want to listen.
And that's how the thing's supposed to work.
And so I am just appealing again here for people to do that, to feel that way, because Grenada at the end of the day belongs to all of us. Whether you're vying to get into office or you're vying to take the present administration out of office, it is the same Grenada you are vying for.
Yeah.
So let's work together for its preservation, for its protection, and for us to ensure that our people stay safe and that their livelihoods are protected.
And one thing we don't want to do, as you said, if you're vying for office, one thing you don't want to do is condemn the same protocols that you may have to put in place when you get in there. Eh?
If you get there.
If you get there.
So, I want to say thank you again for listening to us. It was brief, but of course I think it's important. So, whatever you do and say, continue to enjoy your Tuesday. And I pray God that we'll all survive to see another day. It has been very heavy rains this morning from the time I left home. I didn't see the lightning nor hear the thunder, but it was wow, good showers. My windscreen wiper was working at the highs, and some parts of the granite, and I still had to squinch my eyes to really see clearly, driving very slow because it was a lot of water. Whatever you do, for the rest of the day. Be safe and be secured. Take care. I hope we'll be able to see each other or listen to each other, converse again tomorrow, God's willing, once the Lord allows us to see another of His beautiful day.
All right, guys, we've come to the end of our program, and as we say every day, be safe, be secure. We want to be talking with you, and we don't ever want to be talking about you. Please enjoy the remainder of your day, and of course, stay tuned for the National Report.
Of the National Health Insurance.
First commercial JetBlue flight arrives with 70 passengers on board. Details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Monday, October 5th, I am Leslie Ann Johnson. 70 passengers received a warm Grenadian welcome when the first commercial JetBlue flight touched down at the Morris Bishop International Airport on Saturday. It is the first commercial flight since the suspension of flights as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Details in this report by Rhea Murray, the Communications Officer at the Grenada Tourism Authority.
Presently, Grenada is open to the world, and the destination welcomed JetBlue's first returning commercial flight on Saturday at noon under new entry protocols. The passengers were treated to a pure Grenada welcome that included steel pan music and a goodie bag containing local products and a pure Grenada mask. Here's what visitors said about their experience.
So we're from Florida, United States, and the arrival process has been extremely smooth. The website provided a lot of information that was great to have ahead of time. So we just followed the directions on the website. They kept it routinely updated, so we just monitored that prior to the arrival, completed the necessary paperwork. Once we landed, it was great. They had a nice air-conditioned room for us to sit in while they walked everybody through the process. And I'd say no more than 10 minutes outside of a disturbance. It's not even a disturbance. It was great. So the whole process, we highly recommend it. Come get to Grenada. Grenada's back open, baby. Come on.
I thought that they made it really easy. They gave everyone numbers. Everyone was spread out. They explained really well how the whole process would work, and then they called everyone. They went through the forms easily. Few seconds, at each station. They went through, made everything was good, and I don't know, I have no complaints. It felt really clean and safe and fast and easy. It took me like 5 minutes, 10 minutes to get through, the whole thing.
What are you most looking forward to?
The beach, the beautiful beach and the warm weather, for sure.
Yeah, I find it was pretty okay. I mean, I work at the airport, so I was kind of expecting it, so it's kind of I believe it's okay. I mean, taking into consideration the whole risk of the COVID and what we're going through, I think it went pretty hard for me.
A lot of checkpoints, but it was worth it.
Okay, and you're here on vacation?
Yeah, vacation.
All right. What are you most looking forward to in Grenada?
Diving.
Meantime, American Airlines is returning to the destination from October 8 with 5 flights per week. These flights increase the opportunity for people living within our number one source market, the USA, to get to Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. Visitors and residents will be required to follow the strict entry requirements to the country by the Ministry of Health before they can go to the approved Pure Safe Travels accommodation.
In keeping with government's thrust to facilitate personal growth and development among ministers and to encourage versatility through management of different portfolios, ministers who took the oath of office last week officially assumed their new responsibilities on Monday. The Honourable Nicholas Steele, who now holds the portfolio of Minister for Health and Social Security, welcomed the decision by Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honourable Keith Mitchell to place an additional minister in his ministry with a specific responsibility for hospital services. which he says will allow him more time to focus on other health matters. Minister Steele spoke with the Government Information Service after taking the oath of office at the residence of the Governor General on Friday.
The pandemic that we are now dealing with, the threats we have with dengue, public health issues, and most importantly as well, the implementation of national health insurance. So I welcome this opportunity to focus on certain significant issues while at the same time knowing that the other very important issues will be dealt with the energy and drive that Minister Thomas brings to the new portfolio that she has.
The Honourable Clarice Modeste Kerwin also welcomes the Ministry of Climate Resilience and the Environment to her portfolio. She believes they will complement each other.
Everything that impacts the environment impacts the country, impacts human lives, and therefore it will impact tourism. And it could be, the environment could be handled in such a way as to favor tourism and to contribute to what's a tourism product in our country. This year's World Tourism Day and the theme for the ensuing year to come is about tourism and rural development. And rural development, you have in the rural areas an opportunity to explore maybe more of nature, more of the natural things.
Sports, culture and the arts now falls under the direction of the Honourable Yolande Bain Hosford, which also includes fisheries and cooperatives. She says while they are high-impact ministries, the portfolios are not new to her.
Sports is an area that I know a lot has been done there, but community sports is an area I think that needs some strength. Building, developing the athletes, training, preparing them for overseas. You know, a lot of the time we leave our athletes to build that confidence when they reach overseas. But we can start from now. If you look at the communities, we have a lot of persons who are really doing a lot in terms of, I drive through my constituency alone, and there are a lot of persons who are playing basketball and telephone poles, who, you know, in the field, and then they I don't know if they're recognized. Maybe they are, but maybe more should be done in that area.
Permanent secretaries also took up their new assignments on Monday. This is the National Report. More news after the break.
The house was shaking. Then suddenly saw we hear bang, crack, and the roof had gone.
Man, I was so scared, I nearly wet myself.
Only those who have lived it can truly understand the devastating fury of a hurricane's wind.
The house across the road just get up and roll over.
Hurricane force wind. It's a hazard. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. You can hurricane-proof your home. For example, make your roof more wind-resistant by using screws instead of nails in its construction. Find out more about hurricane force winds and other hazards at your local disaster office. A message from the National Disaster Management Agency and SEDERA.
Continuing the news, the Chief Technical Officer in the Ministry of Infrastructure Development, Transport and Implementation, Ms. Naja Andal, is appealing to owners of heavy equipment vehicles to utilize alternative routes, with work now underway on a portion of the Grand Dance Valley Public Road. The closure has become necessary to facilitate construction of a retaining wall and to install 14 24-inch culverts.
As a result of this, we are encouraging SL trucks, in particular, to traverse other alternative routes. The duration of the works is expected to be for 3 weeks. Before the end of the day, we will have the requisite signage at both locations. I think at this stage, the most we can do is to encourage them to use alternative routes. On Friday, we did call most trucking companies to advise them of the impending repairs, but it could be that we did not contact everyone. So we do apologize for this inconvenience.
Work is being undertaken by Gilbert Nero of GN Quality Enterprise. He says the job will be completed within the agreed time once they get the cooperation from motorists. Phase 1 of the project is already complete, and now they are on to the second phase.
So far, we did 6 culverts below, so that's the bypass that you see there. And we have 8 motor posts here. So That is what we are about to do today. Divert the traffic to that side and start digging here. It's a 24-inch culvert. And we casting it, we boxing it and cast it. So the culvert is not just going down, but besides that, it's going on solid concrete right down. So the pressure, so he's gonna be able to take the pressure and all of that.
Boasting of more than 20 years working closely with farmers throughout Grenada, Mr. Roderick Sinclair has officially received his instrument of appointment from Governor General Her Excellency Dame Cecile Grenada as the farmers' representative in the upper house. The position became vacant when former Farmers Senator Dunstan Campbell informed the House that he could no longer continue due to health issues. After receiving his instrument of appointment, Mr. Sinclair told the GIS that the opportunity to serve farmers is a huge responsibility, but he's willing to give his best.
We have to get the farmers involved very early. I've been working with farmers directly in the farms at different levels over the last 20 years, and so it wouldn't be different, but I think you make an important point. At a new level now, I can able to coordinate and interface with many others on their behalf. I would also rely on a lot of other technical persons who are within the local and regional and international space to able to provide input so that we can discuss and negotiate with the government and different policy persons to make a difference for not only the farmers and fisher folks themselves, but the broader aspect of the 110,000 of Grenadians, because as we say, this is our backbone, and we need to see how do we add value to our products.
At the top of his agenda is the inclusion of more groups in agriculture, as well as getting farmers to see the importance of tourism, health, and wellness.
We have to look at the whole issue of climate change and how we interface in all of that. And sustainability in the way we utilize energy to become more efficient. So there's a lot of things on the table, and I know the farmers have a lot of ideas. And so I'm really looking forward to work along with them, to work along with the new minister, and of course, Honorable Joseph Bain Hosford, who is in fisheries, because this is part of the mix. But I think we need to look at agriculture interface in a broader perspective. So the Ministry of Health must get involved. The Ministry of Education must be involved. The Ministry of Implementation and Communication and Works. We also have to look at the youth. And the women. We cannot forget that, because at the end of the day, a lot of time the youth and the women are disadvantaged and left out of the mix.
And that's the National Report. I'm Leslie Ann Johnson.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new National Party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.